Welcome everybody this afternoon to our formal Corporate Parenting Board. I'd like to welcome everyone here and also Councillor Robinson, Councillor Lugg, Councillor Sutton, Jane McLennan online this afternoon. Do I have any apologies? Thank you. Just to confirm the minutes of the previous meeting held on the 28th of May, Councillor Bell and Councillor Jones, I think, were both attending. So you're happy with the minutes? Thank you. Are there any declarations of interest? No declarations of interest. And there have been no submissions for public participation. So we move on to item 6, the corporate parenting data set. We're here to receive a report from the Corporate Director for Care and Protection.
And good afternoon, my name is Louise Drury. I'm the Head of Service for Children in Care, and I'm now able to provide this report, which was previously going to be reported on by the Corporate Director. So I'm delighted to present this to Corporate Parenting Board this afternoon. I think the first thing to highlight is that following a period of increasing numbers of children coming into care between February, or numbers of children in our care between February and August, we have now started to see a downward trend. Currently, we have 463 children. This is in October in our care, and of those, 42 are unaccompanied children, which puts our rate at around 71 per 10,000. We can see that this is higher than what we have, the numbers of children in our care previously. And in conversations with other colleagues around the country, we're having confirmation that actually they're seeing similar trends as well. We remain really confident that the children who are coming into our care are the right children. We have our robust systems and processes where we are discussing children in a range of different places. We're confident that those systems are supporting us well. We're also mindful about looking at the number of children who are exiting our care. And it's really pleasing to see the number of children who are moving into what we call special guardianship orders, which is really evidencing our strategy for more of our children to be cared for by within families and friend networks. One of the concerns or questions that has previously been raised and continues to be an area of focus is the number of children who are living outside of Dorset. And the systems and processes that we have in place to ensure that their health needs, education needs, and also safeguarding needs are met. I know I've got my colleagues here who've presented a report regarding health who will absolutely talk about that, because that is one of our areas where we work really hard with other commissioning colleagues to ensure that the timeliness of our initial health assessments and review assessments, health assessments, are undertaken. But it is a difficult space for us. In terms of education for our children who are living outside of Dorset, we have our virtual school, and there's a report here today to look at that, the progress. That is a consistent offer for our children who are living in Dorset and outside of Dorset. And in terms of safeguarding, ensuring the safeguarding of our children who are living outside of Dorset, clearly our children are still being seen by their social workers, by the IRO, and also through the review process. But prior to any home being identified for a child living outside of Dorset, we have a really robust due diligence process with our brokerage colleagues, and where children are moving to a residential home outside Dorset, again, that robust due diligence, but equally we would be having conversations with the local authority that we'd be moving a child to, and also reviewing the local impact risk assessment to ensure that actually the area children are moving to is going to meet their needs and not put them at any greater risk. I would like to invite any further questions on the data set. I think it's self-explanatory. There is commentary throughout, but welcome questions.
Councillor Jones?
Yeah, I was concerned about the number of youngsters living outside Dorset. And I wonder, is it because they're living with some family members mainly? And is this the reason they move from Dorset to live with grandparents or other people?
Thank you, Councillor Jones. So the majority of children who live outside of Dorset actually live in neighbouring authorities. And for some of those children, they're living with family members, and that may be through connected fostering. And also some children would still be remaining in a family, but maybe within an independent fostering arrangement. There are some children who are in residential accommodation because we know that we have our own residential accommodation within Dorset, but that isn't sufficient to meet all of the needs of our own children. But I think it's reassuring in some ways that actually, because of the nature of the size of Dorset, it's quite a large rural county, and that some of those children, whilst living outside, may still be within 20 miles of their home.
Do we monitor how many actually come back to Dorset after living away? And another point, how much does the residential care cost in the homes?
Can I come to a colleague in terms of the cost of the residential home? I'll come to her in a moment. In terms of children returning to Dorset, we continue to keep that under review through the review process. Some of our children put down really strong roots in the area in which they're living, and voice very clearly that that's where they want to stay. Where we are having those reviews and we're identifying that actually we can meet children's needs better in Dorset, then we are actively progressing those plans for those children to return home. And then I'll come to my colleague in terms of the cost.
They're no longer Dorset youngsters if they want to stay elsewhere.
They will always be, if there are children in care, they remain our children in care. We extend that, in terms of our leaving care offer as well, so that, forever Dorset children. Is that okay? Brilliant.
Good afternoon. Kelly Henry, Head of Good Care Provision. So the cost for external residential provision can vary quite significantly. On average, we probably pay between £6,000 and £8,000 per child. Some of that increases around specific needs, packages of particular support for children, but it's around, that would be an average cost. Thank you.
So can I just ask, so average cost 6,000 to 8,000 per month, per year?
Sorry, that's per week. Yes, that's correct.
Thank you. Councillor Bell.
Not much competition for asking questions this afternoon. I'm Councillor Matt Bell, Radipole Ward. Officers who've met me before won't be surprised that I'm looking at the education data, given my professional background. I'm looking at the section about PEPs being completed in a timely fashion. Really, really pleasing that that's on an upward trajectory, 96% in July. Do we know when the next data set for that will come in and how we're doing this academic year?
Paula Golding, Corporate Director for Care and Protection. We report on it termly, so it'll be due when we come back in January. I can't tell you the percentage at this point because unfortunately Joe's not with us.
Councillor Bell.
Thank you for that. On a separate point, the average attendance figures, I know it states below the graph on page 16 that the target is 95%, and the children in our care are currently around 89%. However, I know that that 95% figure is extremely challenging across the entire school cohort. Do we know how that figure for children in care attendance at school compares to the overall cohort? Because I think that might be a fairer judge than a target that schools are generally struggling to achieve across the board.
Could I ask you to just clarify your question slightly?
Yeah, I sit in lots of meetings through my work where the 95% target is raised. I'm also aware that lots of schools generally aren't achieving that. We've got data that puts the children in care attendance at 89.03, which on an initial look, you're thinking, okay, it's roughly 6% below the 95% mark. However, what I'm interested in, how does the current figure for the children in care attendance compare to the overall attendance in our schools in the area? In other words, is 89% broadly matching the wider school cohort, or are we still seeing a difference there?
We're still seeing a difference. Of about, if we say 5% as a ballpark figure. But what I would say about that figure is compared to those virtual schools that also report, we are favouring well and we're about 1% above. So it's an ambitious target of 95%, but we are still chasing that target and hoping to see further increases.
Thank you. Paul Dempsey.
Hello, Paul Dempsey, Executive Director for Children's Services. I think you will see in the virtual school report that comes later that attendance for children in care is considerably better than for children in need and children on child protection plans, indicating you would take from that the positive impact of us having made the decision that a child should come into care, and then we are improving certainly their education attendance thereafter from that move. So that is encouraging.
Thank you. Councillor Lugg.
Hi, sorry I'm late, Chair. You were aware of the fact. Because I'm going to be taking on the challenge of safe and settled, you won't be surprised to hear that my questions will be around that. So we have 14% of our children in care who've had 3 or more homes in the past year. How are we looking to address that, to give them that safe and settled experience that we want for all our children? That's the first part, and then I've got another bit in a minute.
Louise Drury.
Thank you, Councillor Lugg. So we continue to identify the most appropriate homes for our children and have regular meetings every week to try and achieve that. For some of our children, to support them to be settled takes longer. And sometimes that requires a move onto another home. Clearly, our intention and our ambition would be to reduce the number of moves that any child has to undertake, because we know the impact of that on their emotional health and well-being. But we are under, this is an area that has a lot of focus for us, and we do have systems and processes in place to continue to monitor that.
That's what I wanted to hear, basically. The other question I've got, we've got one 18 to 25-year-old in bed and breakfast accommodation and 7 in unsuitable accommodation. Can you flesh that out a bit for us, please?
Can I go to Jane McLennan, who's online? She'll be able to answer that for you.
Yes, the one person in bed and breakfast is a young person who did have suitable accommodation, gave up the keys, moved to Glasgow, and I have raised this previously in corporate parenting board, in our informal corporate parenting boards. He left Glasgow, went to stay with friends in Southampton, and is back in Glasgow and is presented as homeless again in Glasgow. He has been offered accommodation in Dorset and doesn't want that, and wants to remain in the Glasgow area. So that is the one person in bed and breakfast. The other young people, there is one young person who has been homeless for a significant period of time. Members of corporate parenting board will be aware of that. It's our young person that again has been offered lots of different types of accommodation and has turned those down, and is choosing to be homeless, maintaining college, and the other young people are in custody.
Okay, thank you. In terms of the young person who's an asylum seeker, presumably you could continue to do this. Will we continue to work with him? What is our responsibility in terms of if he voluntarily gives up accommodation?
He's within his rights to choose his own accommodation. We will continue. He has a PA, a personal advisor. All our young people do, and that will be in place until he is 25. He's a care leaver who does not have status and leave to remain at the moment. His application is ongoing. His personal advisor has regular contact. We are linked in with the Leaving Care Services in Glasgow, and we have 4 weekly supervision, 4 weekly meetings with housing, and enhanced visiting, both virtually and with the PA travelling to Glasgow.
Thank you. That's it.
Paula Golding.
Thank you, Paula Golding, Corporate Director, Care and Protection. Just wanted to take the opportunity in talking about children needing to move to plug our fostering campaign. Hopefully most of you will have seen the Christmas campaign, Greatest Gift, and the stockings that have been across Weymouth. But we really need more foster carers, and so that supports our children to have more stability if we've got more options to match. So just wanted to use it as an opportunity to promote that.
Thank you. Everyone happy for us to move on now? So item 7, Independent Reviewing Officer's Annual Report.
Thank you. Tony College, Quality Assurance Service Manager and Service Manager for the IRO service. So thank you for taking the time to read our annual report. I'm not going to go over all of it. I'll just draw attention to a few points that I'd like to highlight. So I wanted to just point out that the IRO service contribution to good outcomes for children in care was noted by Ofsted in our inspection this year. There was comments made in the report and verbally during the inspections, which we were very proud of. Children being an active part of their review process was highlighted, and the IRO role in ensuring the small number of children in unregistered homes were protected was also pointed out. Just draw your attention as well to our continued good compliance with most areas of timeliness of reviews and recommendations, the improvements that we've made to the dispute resolution activity, and our engagement with the Youth Voice Network, other areas we've made good progress this year. I am acutely aware of the ongoing challenge providing minutes on time within the 20 days, and I'm pleased to share that since this report was written, that has increased and is currently consistently around 60%. We're using AI technology more, and performance management has had a positive impact. However, there is a long way to go. I'm aware of that and we'll continue to focus on it. As mentioned, our dispute resolution activity's also been improved this year. We've got better ways to monitor the impact of the daily efforts our team make to improve services for children in care and how we can resolve escalations in a collaborative way. And finally, the other thing I just wanted to draw people's attention to was the establishment of the Safe and Settled Care Learning event. That enables the themes and learning from our service to be delivered directly back to practitioners with the input of care experienced young people, and this event's got the capacity to grow and develop more in the years ahead.
Thank you. Any questions? Any questions online? Councillor Stella Jones.
I'm concerned about the number of youngsters who are NEET, not in education or training. I believe the government is trying to come with a new scheme. Are we aware of anything happening very soon or to help these youngsters? Right. I'm concerned about the number of youngsters in NEET, not in education training. And I believe the government are coming up with a new scheme. Are we involved in, aware of that, and what are we going to do to help more youngsters get out of NEET?
Jane McLennan, are you to answer that?
Our numbers for young people and care leavers, particularly who are in education, employment and training, has increased and continues to improve. We are above the national average, and we are above our good plus statistical neighbours, with our current percentage being at 73%. This is part of the council plan. The new initiatives are relatively new, as in this week. We will link closely with our Pathways to Employment team, and we have 2 lead PAs who will link into any new government initiatives, and we will be putting in bids, as we have with the DFE for our mentoring scheme and our Staying Close, which has supported our young people in engaging with meaningful employment, education and training, as well as local initiatives and linking it in with local businesses.
Thank you. Happy with that. Councillor Sutton.
Yeah, thanks, Bridget. I'm really, really sorry I'm not there in person. I'm afraid I'm really not very well. And my head's not functioning properly. But just to advise that the Cabinet paper on Tuesday about the council plan had quite a lot of detail in it about how specifically we're supporting care leavers into EET. And there's quite a lot of examples about working with particular companies. I remember Hall and Woodhouse is in there, for example. But just to say, Stella, if you have a look at that Cabinet paper, I think you'll find a lot of reassurance about the many different things that we're doing, which has helped us to get up to, as Jane says, 73.3%, I think. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Sutton, and thank you for being here despite the fact that you don't feel very well. I've got a question from Councillor Sarri-House around IRO service timeliness. Why has the completion of review minutes within 20 days remained at only 45%? And what concrete steps will ensure improvements in 2025-26?
Thank you. Yeah, I think I just sort of mentioned about that in my introduction. Since the report's been written, the timeliness of the minutes has increased to consistently around 60%. So I know that's still not where we want it to be, but it is an improvement, and I hope it shows that we're working hard on this, working hard on improving it. We've been using AI. More people in the team are now using Copilot through the council's license. That's helping. I'm using some performance management plans with some people in the team to improve it as well.
Thank you. Any more questions? No. Yeah, can I just comment for the board around where it's on page 32, risk implications, that the current risk is low and residual risk is low. So I think that's really positive. So we're happy to move on to item 8, advocacy and independent visitors. Is that you?
Hi, yeah, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Sarah Mullen. I am the Senior Advocate for NIAS, National Youth Advocacy Service. I've recently joined Dorset in March 2025. And I'm presenting the report on behalf of the Advocacy Service and the IV Service. My colleague can't be here for the IV Service, so I'm going to cover that as well. So just really some figures, some highlights of what we've done for the report. Well, the report runs from last August through to this year, March 25, so it's not a full year. That's due to the contract change that came about last August. That's been renewed with us, and that goes through, I think, to 2027. So that's the new contract that we have with Dorset. So what we've done this year, I'll just give you some highlights from the report, which hopefully you've all got. We've delivered, and I'm going to talk about issue-based advocacy. We provide issue-based advocacy, and we provide child protection advocacies, but I'm only going to talk to you today about the issue-based advocacy, which will include, obviously, children in care. So we've delivered 229 issue-based advocacy referrals for 156 individual children and young people, and those are between the ages of 2 and 4. The top reasons for our advocacy were 60% for children in care reviews, which we support, 11% child in need meetings, and 5% living arrangements. With regards to our demographics, we had 13% of our young people had a disability, and 12% of our young people had mental health needs. 36 children lived outside of Dorset, but we do support those. We will find other local advocates to come in from our NIAS service, which is a nationwide service. We cover the whole of the UK, and we will find advocates to support our Dorset children in those areas. Actions on our last priorities, we've increased awareness through our Thinking Thursday, so we've been talking to the social workers, obviously about referrals and trying to get those referral numbers up. We've embedded restorative practice and improved feedback loops with professionals, and we've maintained continuity during the contract transition, and we've now filled staffing gaps. I know in the last year report there were quite big gaps, so those now have been filled, which is good news. The difference we've made, we have increased children's knowledge of their rights, which is important for us and important for the young people. So that will be between 37 and 45% prior to working with an advocate, to 83 and 86 post-support. So we are having an impact on letting these young people and children know about their rights. Young people are able to influence their plans. So when they're in care, obviously they want to know what's happening, they want to know why it's happening. And again, those percentages have jumped, so they know that they can actually have their voice heard to actually influence what's happening to them. And 97% were happy with their advocate. So our focus for the year ahead with the advocacy is to expand our advocacy reach, especially for underrepresented groups, broaden the creative range of direct tools, for example, using pictorial wishes and feelings for particularly young children, aged sort of 4 to 5, who can't really express themselves so well, and they really respond well in drawing pictures, and we can put those into the meetings and they can be very, very powerful. And we are going to strengthen our support for care leavers and their transitions. And we're going to continue working with Kay's team, embedding with Youth Voice in our service design and evaluation. On the independent visitor side, we obviously provide independent visitors. So these visitors will work alongside, it's a voluntary role for our visitors. They'll work alongside young people who are referred by social workers. they take them out, and it's just having somebody, a trusted adult to spend some quality time with, and those relationships, again, can prove to be very valuable going forward. So what we've done this year, there were 16 new referrals, 8 new matches. This was ending with 23 children being matched, which was up from 19 on our last report. We have 18 children waiting for a match, and that was up from 12. Volunteer recruitment is going ahead, and we're doing that through targeted campaigns, community outreach, university engagements. We're using the Dorset Volunteer Centre, schools, businesses, and the Community Action Network. So we have a big push. We're really, really trying to find independent visitors at the moment to support those young people. Our actions on last year's priorities, we've increased the match rate and volunteer applications that have gone up, and we've improved awareness amongst professionals and children. So the difference we've made, our annual review feedback from 9 children who have been matched with an IV for 12 months. So they are, once they've been in place for 12 months, then we ask them how it's going. 100% said they were comfortable talking to their IV. 80% said they tried something new, and 60% had learned a new skill. The IV's service focus for the year ahead is to recruit more volunteers to reduce those waiting times for our young people, and to continue to ensure diversity and representation in the volunteer base, strengthen lifelong links for care leavers, and use person feedback to shape our training and activity planning. And that's the end of the report. And if there are any questions, I'm happy to take those. Thank you.
Thank you. There was a question from Councillor Sari House around the plan to eliminate the waiting list of 18 children, and also about accelerating volunteer recruitment, which you've actually answered. Thank you. So are there any questions?
Yeah, I think it's great that youngsters have an advocate and go and help them with all their rights. Does a child stay with the same advocate generally? And can they, if they don't get on, choose another one?
Yeah, thanks for your question. Yeah, we try and give them the same advocate for that continuity, and obviously it's all about building trust up as well, so the young person feels comfortable to talk to that the young person feels comfortable to talk, so they have that relationship, and if they don't get on with their advocate, absolutely they can ask for another one. Sorry.
Independent visitor. I was once an independent visitor for children, and it is wonderful because you are the only person that goes there without a clipboard, without having something specific to talk about, and the child can talk to you about anything at all. You can give them a new experience, and I do hope we can manage to get an independent visitor for all these people who are waiting at the moment. And I know it's a volunteer's job, but it's good for the volunteer as well as for the youngster.
Thank you. Louise Drury is going to ask a question on my behalf.
Thank you. On 8.11, just noticed that, really positive to see the increase in understanding, sort of pre-intervention and post, but just noticing that the cohort, the numbers of children that are being captured here has changed between pre and post. Could you explain that a little bit, please?
Sorry, what do you mean?
I think it's the difference.
Okay, so 8.11. For example, did you have opportunities to express your views, wishes and feelings? Yes, pre is 29 out of 42, so that's 69%. And then yes, post is 97%, but that's 33 out of 34. So the number of children has changed from 42 to 34, or is that just our misunderstanding?
Do you know, I'm not entirely sure why that shows like that, but I can go back and check for you, if that's okay.
Yes. I could make a guess.
Oh.
I could make a guess, because I think pre is being asked at the start, and they might not always, you might have different children that are willing to fill out survey from one time to the next time, so
Yeah.
you're not always surveying the same children, I think.
Yeah, that probably explains it. Thank you.
Any more questions? Councillor Bell.
Just a thought, really. Thinking about the independent visitors and recruitment of that, obviously there's a drive for foster carers at the moment. That's going to hopefully garner a response from a wide variety of people in our community. I imagine some people enter the foster process, maybe later on decide that isn't possibly something they want to do, but they do still want to be involved with helping young people in the area. Is there that linked up process where if someone approaches us offering one thing, then decides maybe they can't make that commitment, do we then direct them to things like this so that we're not missing out on that ethos and volunteering sort of idea from those people and getting what we can where we can?
I think that's a really excellent idea. I know that when we have those conversations about deregistration, or where foster carers say, actually, I'm not able to continue, I know that there are conversations that happen about, and what else? Is there anything else that you'd be interested in doing, given that we do have that long-standing relationship? But I think it's a particular point that we can raise. But so thank you for that.
Councillor Stella Williams. Jones, sorry.
Yeah, on the same point, I think when I became an independent visitor, it was just by chance because somebody told me about it. It's not advertised. I think we ought to do a promotion of how wonderful it is for these youngsters to have an independent visitor. And it's easy to do, if you've got time, and you're involved with children in any case, it's really good. So a bit of publicity.
I think we'd welcome your ideas, Councillor Jones, in sort of developing that promotion. And I think that would be something that we could work on together. Thank you.
Everyone happy? I'll move on. So item 9, this is the annual report of the virtual school education of children in care. Jo Smart-Richards has sent her apologies, and I believe Jennifer now is going to deliver the report.
Yes, I am. I'm Jen Fennell. I'm the Corporate Director for Education and Learning. So I will present an overview and highlights. 2024-25 has been a year of expansion and transformation within the team to support all children with a social worker and children in kinship care arrangements, as well as our existing and long-standing work with our children in care and care leavers. We've focused on highlighting and celebrating belonging and inclusion within our work and practice, implementing alternatives to suspensions and enhancements of our bespoke offers for our children, alongside implementing focused monitoring and support for all of our children. Some of our key strengths this year that I'd just like to highlight. We've seen a reduction in suspensions for children in care, and that's a reduction of 5%. We've ensured that there has been no increase in suspensions for children with a social worker. There's been a reduction in the number of permanent exclusions for our children in care and for our children on child protection plans and children in need. We've launched a proactive approach to alternatives to suspensions. We've relaunched the Knowledge Exchange programme in collaboration with the University College of London, working in partnership there with a cross-phase group of specialist and mainstream providers to develop their practice. A proactive staff training offer implemented for all of the schools that educate our children. We've seen an increase in attendance, as already referenced, and just to give a little bit of detail on the question Councillor Bell asked that I didn't have quite to hand at the time. All year groups, actually, their attendance is over 90%, with the exception of year 9, year 10 and year 11. So I think that's another detail worth noting. We've maintained the low use of reduced timetables in 24-25. We've seen an increase in the number of post-16 who are in education, employment or training. Our outstanding PEP quality assurance, with 95% of our PEPs judged as outstanding quality. We have weekly celebrations of the attainment and the achievements of our children. We organised a residential opportunity for children from year 7 to 11, working in partnership with Jamie's Farm, which was an amazing experience for many of our children and our staff and partners. We've developed our support for children in kinship care arrangements. We've organised the delivery of a range of extracurricular activities in response to our children's voices, making sure they can take part in things that they've expressed a desire that they'd like to do and that they enjoy. We've had good outcomes for phonics in Year 4 multiplication check, in the Key Stage 2 SATs and the GCSE results and post-16 results. Things I think we need to continue to focus on: improving attendance for those children with severe absence, that's 50% or less. Enhancing our offer for our children living in kinship arrangements. Embedding our children's voice within our work. Working with locality practitioners and partners to develop good practice to reduce suspensions, particularly for children with special educational needs. Develop a robust monitoring report for children with a social worker who are electively home educated, in preparation for directions we know we're going to give them from the Children and Wellbeing Bill. Develop a targeted programme for young people in key stages 2, 4 and 5 to support education, employment and training, and develop the work of the wider extended role. So some real aspirational things there that we really want to continue to focus on. I've talked about attendance. Just to give a little bit more detail on attainment, if I may. Year 4 multiplication check, an average score of 19. Last year's average score was 17 for our children. Key Stage 2 maths, reading and writing, we compare well with our other neighbouring authorities and statistical neighbours. In Key Stage 4, we had 19.6% of our children achieving a 4+ in maths, and 10.9% achieved a 5+ in maths. Now, last year in our 5+, the figure was 5.1, so that's definitely an area to celebrate. 8.7% of our young people achieved a 5+ in English. It was 2.6% last year. And then I think that concludes my overview.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Councillor Bell.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the report. And it's obviously such incredibly important work and the work to reduce suspensions, etc. Now, thinking specifically on that point, it was probably one of the most powerful things I've experienced as a teacher. I've done a lot of training days, and they don't always hit home, being truthful. But we had one with the virtual headsets, where it basically took you into those scenarios of a trauma-experienced young person. Incredibly powerful. I've had staff at my particular setting talk to me about it since, and how it changed, how they used language towards certain students. I know for myself there was a little bit of reflection as well of where I maybe could have used different language in the past or responded differently. It was incredibly powerful, and it genuinely has changed practice in the education setting I'm in. Has that programme carried on? Is it still being funded? How many schools is it being rolled out to? Because I really cannot get across how much difference that made to what was a very experienced room of teachers as well. It wasn't people early in their career. And it gets harder to change people's approach to things the longer they are into a career. And the group I was with were all very experienced and all came away with something they were changing that will benefit young people, particularly those who are trauma experienced. So if anyone can flesh out what's happened with that since, whether it's ongoing and how far that's reached. Thanks.
Thank you for your question. It's interesting, actually, we actually had an experience with those headsets yesterday. It was a safeguarding conference yesterday, and the team take every opportunity to ensure that if there's an arena, we're there, giving people the opportunity to trial them. So we are still continuing to use them. And actually something that we are going to try is training whole school teams, as well as just people being able to come on to training, to see if actually the impact then, because the whole school have received the training, will be even greater than people who are really impressed, such as you and I and my colleague Paula, who've had that experience as well.
Paul Dempsey.
Thank you. I was asking this very question yesterday at a conference when I saw people with the headsets, and according to Joe Smart-Richards, the virtual school head, the impact of these, where these are schools and the staff in the schools have used these, is that it has improved outcomes in those schools. So, it's not a full evaluated research study, but we're looking to roll it out as a whole school approach and then do further study of that. But so far, the indications are that the practice and the outcomes have improved. So that's really good.
Thank you. And I believe that for our corporate parenting board, we're actually going to have that virtual headset training, I think in January, is it? Just before our next meeting. So thank you for that. Any more questions? I've just got a question about elective home education that I think this is on page 16 or page 106. There are 27 children in need being home educated. I'm just checking that there is active monitoring and ensuring adequate education for these children and young people.
Actively monitor all our children who are linked to our virtual school or part of our virtual school. So in answer, yes. As part of the Children and Wellbeing Bill, that monitoring and oversight of children who are electively home educated will increase and be more focused, I suppose, would be a good word. But yes, we do have oversight of those children.
Thank you. And also, looking at page 110, it talks about pupil premium plus and financing of interventions. I just note that it's only 18% that is spent on primary and early years, which I'm quite surprised at, because if the earlier interventions are put in place, the greater success you're going to get as children go through school. So is there any change of, opinion about how interventions are put in place within schools?
Thank you. I think it's important to contextualise that with the fact that all of our schools do offer a really rounded extracurricular set of activities for all pupils. And I think our primary schools are probably very good at that. So I think as well as the figures that we have there will be lots of our children who are accessing extracurricular enrichment activities beyond this. I think what this data captures is the specific requests that we have that actually go to a panel and we make a decision about allocating funding to those young people. So from that perspective, that kind of balances the data. But I will take away that point and explore it further. But that's my initial thought.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Stella Jones.
Yeah, I think with the virtual school is excellent for all the youngsters, and you do a lot of really good work, and it shows that by the improving results we're getting. How soon, when a child is in care, are they aware of the virtual school? And are they aware of it permanently, or just on it, off occasions you get in touch with them and tell them what you're doing?
We're aware of our children almost immediately in answer to the first part of the question. I didn't quite catch the second part, Councillor.
The youngsters, are they aware that you are constantly monitoring them?
Our youngsters are very aware that they are part of our virtual school and they're part of Dorset and that we care for them and we have oversight for them. They all have their own allocated person who goes out to see them and is with them when they complete their plans. So they very much know that they're part of our virtual school and that we care for them and we are their corporate parents. Also, of course, we have events where we bring them together so that they can feel part of not only the school that they're attending, but part of Dorset's virtual school. I gave the example of the residential trip at the farm. We also have awards events. So there is lots going on that helps them to feel not only supported in the school that they attend, but part of our Dorset virtual school as well.
Councillor Sutton.
Yeah, thanks, Bridget. It's just a comment, really. I'm chair of the board of governors of the virtual school, so I'm quite close to this, and I just have to say that the staff and the governors are absolutely amazing. They are so dedicated to this the role. But the other point is, Jen did mention this in her summary that as of, I think it's about 12 months ago, the virtual school was expanded to children with protection plans and children in need. And I just want to re-emphasise that, because that is a really, really, really big deal in terms of the number of kids who we're supporting, and the difference that could make longer term to those children. And that sort of threw up the evidence that somebody mentioned earlier, that actually it's children with child protection plans that have higher rates of suspensions and absenteeism as well, I think, than children in care. Thanks.
Thank you. Any more questions? Everybody happy? So I'll now move on to item 10, the annual LADO report.
Thank you. Megan Cameron-Brown, Head of Quality Assurance and Partnerships. Thank you for reading the report. I'm just going to go through some highlight sections. So in 24-25, we had 796 contacts to the LADO service. Out of those contacts, we had 172 that progressed to referral and initial evaluation meeting, which is around a 22% conversion rate. We have a continued demand for support and guidance regarding allegations and concerns that continues to increase year on year. The number of referrals relating to those employed in education was 63. This is 37% of all referrals. This is a slight increase from last year, though it's within expected numbers, and we need to keep in mind that children spend most of their time in schools. In this reporting year, the most common reason for referrals relates to transferable risk. In case people are unaware of what that means, this is where concerns are about someone's behaviour outside of the workplace, so in their personal life, that may present a risk to children they work with. So that's our largest reason referral, so 41%. This is the same as previous year. It was our largest reason. This would continue to indicate that there's a greater understanding from our agencies around transferable risk and making sure that they refer through those concerns. The numbers of referrals relating to physical abuse remain high, with 32% of those referrals. Emotional harm, neglect, and sexual abuse have all seen a slight decrease in the number of referrals. Coming to our foster carers, We had 20 referrals regarding foster carers living in Dorset. We need to remember that the designated officer has case management responsibility for all carers that live in Dorset, even those that don't work for Dorset Council. Out of the ones that work for Dorset Council, we had 17 referrals to the LADO service progressed under the management of allegations, and this is a slight decrease on the previous year. Out of those 17, 8 were substantiated, 8 were unsubstantiated, and 1 was unfounded. The outcomes, all outcome areas have decreased on last year's numbers. We've got 66 substantiated allegations from 172 referrals, which is around 38% of referrals concluding with substantiated outcomes. And this is consistent with the previous year. And we had a slight increase of active cases still open at the end of the reporting period, and these were police investigations. And police investigations do take a lengthy amount of time often to conclude. And I guess just to highlight that year on year, the number of contacts within the service continues to increase, so not just in terms of referrals, but also in terms of seeking advice and guidance, and then the additional training that we provide to agencies in relation to managing allegations, because it's quite an anxious thing for employers to have to manage their way through. In terms of key performance indicators, 96% of the time we have had an evaluation meeting within 10 working days of the referral, and the majority of the cases have had a post-allegations meeting within the 28 days. And I just wanted to comment on some of the actions, because some of them from the priorities, because some have been delayed. So just to say that the review and update of the referral form is completed and embedded. Continuing training, so we've continued to do bespoke training for teams. We haven't quite reached our family help colleagues yet. This was due to unplanned absences in the team, but it's a priority for this financial year. We want to have an external audit or peer audit that we from another local authority regarding our LADO service. Those local authorities aren't available at the moment, and that's why that's been delayed. And in terms of developing a tracking system in relation to the recommendations we give to an agency following a LADO process being completed, that's currently in progress.
Thank you. Any questions? Councillor Sari House had a question, and in fact, for myself as well. How will Dorset improve police attendance at allegation meetings, given Ofsted's feedback? And bear in mind the priorities for 25-26 include increased attendance by police for all relevant allegation meetings, and it says improved by November 25.
Thank you for that question. It's a really valid question and something we've been working on. So that attendance has already improved. So we've already got improved attendance from the police. So when it's the child abuse investigation team and the other teams within the police that focus specifically on our children, we have really good attendance. Because we have such a large referral rate around transferable risk, that the police that look after those investigations are in different sections of the police force, and they work a lot of shift work, and it can make it trickier to get them to meetings. We have changed some of our processes so that we're only making referrals to the police when we know something has met criminal threshold or it's at risk of meeting criminal threshold, which is decreasing the number of requests on our police force, which is the right thing to do and fair and proportionate thing to do, which will improve the attendance. And we're continuing to work with senior colleagues from the police to really highlight the importance of having police at the LADO meetings, because it is a statutory meeting and they are required to attend.
Thank you. And actually, I guess they can have a representative from the police to be there. It doesn't have to be the person who's actively involved, does it? Thank you. I think that was the main questions. So thank you for that. Anyone else?
Yeah.
Councillor Lugg.
Yeah, it's about the PAIM meetings. It would be helpful to have some figures there. The majority of cases have a PAIM held within 28 days. How many? How many is the majority of cases? You know, if we're to do our job keeping an eye on these things, we need to know. This is a very stressful time for staff, for the person that's made the complaint. In the case of foster parents, they can be on hold whilst this is done. So I would like to see figures in future, please.
Yes, of course. So in future, we can give you figures so that that's clearer. Just to say, within the LADO process, there's no statutory timeframes. The only statutory timeframe is that an agency has to report an allegation to the LADO within 1 working day. Dorset has an ambitious timeframe of that 28 days, which a lot of local authorities do, and we work really hard to reach that, because you are right, it's an incredibly stressful time for the subject of the allegations. So the LADO service is very focused on progressing them as fast as possible and making sure that it's a fair and proportionate process.
Thank you. It's also stressful for the person making the allegation. They want it resolved as soon as possible as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lugg. Just one more question. Why do referrals from faith groups remain at 0? And what targeted engagement is planned to address this gap? Thank you for the question. Oh, sorry.
Sorry. Thank you for the question. It's a really good question. Nationally, faith group referrals are low, so I think it's important to just mention that. We are currently mapping the faith groups that exist in Dorset, and then we'll be reaching out to them individually, as well as creating a safeguarding forum for faith groups to come together once a quarter so that we can continue to build our relationship and support them with their safeguarding. When I've done that in a previous local authority, that's worked really well. So that is our plan.
Thank you. Everybody happy for me to move on to item 11? Children in care at risk of offending and custody. Paul Dempsey.
Thank you. I'd just like to apologise. It seems we've noticed that in the report pack, this report is the report from last year, 23-24, not the 24-25 report. The summary report, which picks out the highlights, is the correct report, 24-25. And we do have David Webb here who can talk to that summary. So I'm offering my apologies for that before we go on, and asking you, Chair, do you want to proceed with David talking to the summary report?
Yes, that's fine.
Thank you, Chair. So I'm David Webb. I'm the Head of Service for Youth Justice. And I'll flesh out the summary report a bit more with what the report that should have been in the reports pack. Children in care are overrepresented in the youth justice system. So at the moment, the figures have dropped slightly, but it's still significant overrepresentation, with 20% of the Dorset children who are open to the youth justice service being children in care, compared to about 1% of the population. There's also a concern that we have very low numbers of children who enter custody or are sentenced to custody, but most of those children in Dorset in recent years have been children in care. This year we've had 2 children sentenced to custody, both of them were care experienced. We have no children in custody currently. One of the reasons why children in care may enter the justice system is that they may be criminalised for behaviour where they live, which would not be the case for a child who is perhaps living with their family. So we have a protocol with all the children's homes in our area and with the Dorset Police to make sure that the police are not called unnecessarily to deal with incidents that take place where the child lives. That protocol is successful in managing that issue, but we still see children coming into the justice system for offences committed elsewhere. One of the our response to this concern is twofold. So one is to think about how do we work earlier to prevent children in care entering the justice system, and the other part is to think about if children in care do enter the justice system, are we confident that we're working as effectively as possible? On the early intervention heading, the reasons for children in care entering justice system are similar to other children in the sense that there's a pattern of issues such as exclusions from school, special educational needs, maybe some health issues, sometimes linked to substance misuse. So that it needs a joined up approach to try and address those issues. One of the projects that we have running at the moment is a speech and language project. So we know that most children in the justice system, over 90%, have got speech, language and communication needs, and almost all of them have also experienced school exclusions. So the Re-Engage project is offering speech and language assessments for children before they're known to the Youth Justice Service who are in Key Stage 3 and at risk of school exclusion. We are offering that specifically to the virtual school to make sure that any children in care in that category are referred into that project if possible. So we get their communication needs identified and we can work more effectively with partners in schools and other settings to respond to that child. In terms of the work with children who have entered the justice system, we've reviewed our work with all the children in care that received a justice outcome in the period between September 24 and March 2025. And what we identified in that audit process was that there were some good examples of really good practice where social workers, youth justice workers and other professionals work well together and very proactively, but that wasn't the case. It didn't happen in all cases. So we need to make that more consistent and identify some practice guidelines for social workers and other colleagues about what happens when a child enters the justice system and how to work well together. We asked the children in care for their views on that, and there were some mixed views, but one of the boys said that youth justice workers and social workers, they work together and try to help me as best they can. I feel like they are good people, most of them, who care and want to help, good people with a bad system, was his view. So there's clearly more for us to do. Part of it is also about information sharing. So, for example, where we have a speech and language assessment for a child, our colleagues in the virtual school looked at their records for all those children that we were auditing and found that we hadn't always shared that speech and language assessment. So we've now got a process in place to do that. If a child does enter custody, then it's very difficult. It can be difficult to find suitable accommodation after release. The problem, in a way, is that it's such a small number of children, thankfully, that are in that situation, that it's quite hard to produce a kind of system-level commissioning approach. So it is still a child-by-child piece of work to identify a suitable placement before they come out of custody. And obviously, the later that is achieved before they're released from custody, the harder that is for the child because they don't know where they're going when they come out of custody, and they may be placed somewhere where they don't have so many connections. So the summary is that we are working actively in the Youth Justice Service, but also with our partners to try to join up that work and make sure that children in care experience a really joined up approach and that our plans with the child are all integrated. And the Youth Justice Plan references what the social workers are doing and vice versa.
Thank you. Any questions? So I'm pleased to see that there is this support at Key Stage 3 for children in care with communication needs. However, again, why are we leaving it until they're in Key Stage 3 when they will have had receptive and expressive language difficulties from birth, probably? It seems very sad that these children are going through, any child actually, is going through school, and it's not until they're so much older that they're receiving some speech and language assessments. And I still don't actually understand why we're not addressing this. and particularly for our children in care who clearly are, entering the youth justice system in some respects maybe unnecessarily because of their speech and language needs.
One of the, we've done some detailed analysis of the types of speech and language needs that children in the justice system have, and what we found is that their expressive language is about 50% of the time within normal limits, the talking. Their ability to understand spoken language is a really significant issue. So about 94% of the children that have been assessed, and over a number of years we've assessed getting on for 300 children, so we've got a decent data set, and 94% of them are below the expected level for understanding spoken language. The reason for explaining that is that I think that does perhaps explain why some of those needs are not picked up sooner, such as in the education system. A child appears to talk okay, can be seen interacting with their friends. The assumption might be they don't have communication needs. And we, in the Youth Justice Service, take the view that we don't wait for a referral, we just assess everyone. Because you can't tell by talking to a child if they've got communication needs. I think there's probably some more we can do to keep spreading that word that if there's behaviour concerns, we need to try and understand what's underneath the behaviour and what the behaviour is expressing. And we are also just thinking about whether we shift that age group for the Re-Engage project down into year 6 so that we can anticipate any issues that might occur in the transition to secondary school.
Thank you. I think Key Stage 1 and early years actually would be a much better idea. Paul Dempsey.
I may be about to say what others are going to say, but it's a big question and a good question and wider than children in care probably. But there was a green paper probably about 10 years ago that was produced by the government that was suggesting that all children in care should be screened for speech, language and communication needs as soon as they come into care, which I would support. Of course, there's always a resource issue about that in terms of the cost of that and the number of skilled, qualified speech and language practitioners around the country to do that, but it would capture some of those things. And of course, there are children who aren't coming into care who it would be really helpful to identify speech, language and communication needs as early as possible in their journey through school and through childhood. So, yeah, a really big question. We have invested in speech and language therapists in our Harbour in care Edge of Care service that Louise Service runs. We've obviously got speech and language therapists in the Youth Justice Service, as well as this extra Re-Engage service. So we do know that there is a need and that it is impactful to meet it. But it would, it would be very good to widen that, but there are cost and resource implications.
Thank you. But in my experience, you don't have to have a really experienced speech and language therapist to be able to do basic screening in schools by SENCOs. It's part of our SENCO training. So I just think we should maybe think on that. Councillor Bell, have you got anything to add to that? Okay, thank you. Jen.
Thank you. I would just like to add that in terms of our early years, part of the early years curriculum is communication and language. And our outcomes in Dorset this year have now tipped above national. So our outcomes are 2% higher than national, which is a really, really good news. So that means that the provision that our children are receiving in early years is doing well. We work very closely with colleagues in the NHS to support our schools as well. So I think, in terms of the interventions that are being delivered in our primary schools, they are also very positive and having a positive impact. So I think there's a case for that picture catching up a little bit with the older age range and having an impact.
Thank you. Councillor Jones.
Yeah, I was going to mention the same thing about early years. Having been an early years teacher, I know the importance of starting very, very young. But can I move on to the fact that police are called into children's homes, whereas they wouldn't be called into family settings because the problems would be dealt with in the family. Do we keep a list of why they're called in? Is it to do with drugs? Is it to do with general violence? And once the police have been called into a children's home, do the children then have to move on elsewhere because they can't settle again, having had this situation?
So we review each police call-out. So we meet quarterly and we go through each call-out in the previous quarter. And the numbers of those call-outs are now quite low. In fact, the last meeting we didn't have any call-outs to review. The reasons for them, it's hard to generalise, but there is probably a pattern of things like the child, some kind of conflict between the child and the workers in the residential setting, leading to the child maybe being aggressive to them or committing criminal damage. The protocol says that the police should only be called when there's an immediate risk to safety, really, or a significant risk to property. Ideally, the staff in the project will manage that within their behaviour policy without involving the police. And the fact that we're getting low numbers of call-outs to review suggests that is happening for the most case. And certainly the child wouldn't mean the end of the placement. I mean, that is something that needs to be worked through because it's part of that process of putting in boundaries and maintaining the relationships when there are behaviour issues.
Concerned about them having to move on again, which would be more disruption to their life.
Thank you. Paula Golding, Corporate Director for Care and Protection. I'm sharing support on behalf of Anthony Bygrave from our complaints team. It's a report that is covering all of Children's Services complaints and will be going to scrutiny in January. So I'm just going to cover off the children in care bit for this board, if that's okay. Under Article 12 of the UN Rights of the Child, that sets out the rights of children to be listened to and on decisions that affect them, and that's a key part of our complaints process. In 2024-25, we had 3 new complaints from children in care, and all of these children were supported by advocates to make their complaint. That's the same number as the previous year. We also had 1 complaint that had started in the previous year but led to a stage 2 investigation during the last year. 2 of the complaints were about from children were about the care that they'd received, and there was 1 complaint requesting a change of social worker. In terms of the number of complaints, we want to encourage our children to access the complaints process if they feel unhappy about things. We do try and resolve things as early as possible before it gets to the complaints process, i.e. through their advocate or through their IRO. But the complaints process is accessible online, is encouraged through the advocacy team and would be supported by social workers. We want to make sure that we hear the voice of our young people well, and that we're responding to them in a timely way. I make sure as corporate director that I have oversight of all of the children's complaints so that we are making sure that we're responding to them in a timely way and that we understand any themes that are arising from those.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Thank you for that. Thank you. So we move on to item 13, and thank you, Louise Harris-Smith, for bearing with us. So this is to report the health of children in care and emotional well-being of children in care. Thank you.
Is it on now? Yeah. Thank you, and thank you for reading my report. My name is Louise Maple. I'm the designated nurse for children in care and care experienced young people, and I'm joined today by Dr. Rachel Lockland, who's our designated doctor, and our head of safeguarding, Simon Hester. So just a few points to highlight from the report in the report, I talk about the Care Experience Health Forum that we put together, which is a quarterly meeting designed for all the professionals working in the network around our children in care across Dorset to get together to have the opportunity to bring up some issues that are important to them and impacting our children in care. It's a really great forum, and it's growing in size. I know that the people that come to it really find it quite helpful. It aligns to our corporate parenting principles and also to NHS Dorset's joint forward plan. We're really proud to have in Dorset a reducing serious violence nurse. We've had that funded for the last 2 years from Serious Violence Duty funding, OPCC. In the first year, the outcome of that role was that, just leading on from what David was bringing up about speech and language, was that 66% of the caseload of those children that were under this role needed speech and language therapy and intervention. But 100% of them needed referral for assessment or were receiving intervention for emotional, mental health or neurodevelopmental conditions, which I think signifies the importance of the role. It also brings up the fact that actually these children weren't identified at an earlier stage, and this role is really kind of coming into play to say this is how we're addressing that. There was one situation where the exploitation risk was reduced from significant to moderate through the intervention of this nurse. This role is due to end in April. Our care leavers, so the health needs of care experienced young people are continually being considered from the point of entering care through to transition to adulthood and requires a whole system approach. In Dorset, we're really lucky to have a Dorset care leaver transition nurse who supports with the leaving care process and beyond up to 25 years. This role works closely with schemes such as the Primary Care Network project, which is demonstrating positive qualitative outcomes for our care leavers in sourcing physical and mental health support after leaving care. And I think it's important to note, actually, since writing my report, we've increased that membership by another 2 primary care networks, and that's through the care coordinators and the social prescribers that work within those primary care networks. So across Dorset, that covers 24 GP practices. It was started in Blandford Group practice, and it's kind of just snowballed from there, really gathered momentum. So a really positive thing to be part of. In terms of dental, that's a really positive move forward progress for us, because in January we launched the Children in Care and Care Experience dental scheme for all children that didn't have a dentist. And we've been able to show an increase in our performance. So in October, we reported that 85 children had been referred into the scheme across Dorset. And performance increased to 94.6% for Q2, 4 children up to date with their dental checks in the month that their health assessment was due. Our target's 80%, so we're well exceeding this. Then I just wanted to pick up something that was mentioned initially around children placed out of area. We know that it's an issue when our children are living out of county in terms of their health assessments, because it's dependent on wherever they're living as to the response from that particular area and their waiting lists. NHS England are aware of the issues nationally and are collating data on each provider to establish where the worst issues persist. In Dorset, we do our best to see children who are living just outside the county. So for initial health assessments, if they're placed in Southampton, we'll bring them back to clinics where capacity allows. And the nurses, for their review health assessment, will visit up to 60 miles outside of the county to try and maintain that consistency. They also have a really robust system in place in terms of requesting those health assessments 3 months before they're due to allow the area where the young person or the child's living to be able to respond in a timely way. There also are processes in place for health teams to liaise with those out-of-county health teams, again, to try and enable as much continuity as possible. And I'm also proud to be part of the Better Homes panel, which I think is a really positive thing, and is always seeking to return our children home. I think there's more to be done. I think there could be more health intervention when it comes to looking into placements and whether that placement is right for that individual's child's needs from a health perspective. Thank you.
Thank you. There's a question online from CR, but I don't know who that is, sorry.
That's probably me, Chairman.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
That's all right.
Councillor Robinson.
I'm sorry, Chairman. I think I missed the opportunity to ask a question on item 12 regarding complaints and representations.
Can we just hold that a moment, just while we're looking at the NHS report, and I'll come back to you if that's okay.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
Thank you. So has anybody got any questions for Louise? Just a point of clarity for me, please. On page 205, where it talks about next steps, reducing the health inequality gap, can you just clarify adoption redaction of records guidance? I don't actually know what that is. Oh.
Yeah. So I think it was last year, NHSE and PCSE, remind me what it stands for? Primary Care. A group of primary care consultants decided that actually for a child's records when they're adopted, they needed to be seamless and continuous. The NHS number would change, but we would require to keep the same records for those children. So as a system, we've been trying to look at how best we do that from a primary care perspective, leading then through to all of our community systems, through to the acute trusts as well, how we best do that, and that's what those meetings are being held to work out the best way to do that. So we're hoping to have that concluded by beginning of financial year.
Thank you. There was a question. So there was a question from Councillor Sari House. What measurable outcomes will result from NHS Dorset's plans to reduce health inequality gaps, particularly around mental health and SEND for care leavers?
Thank you. So I think I mentioned about the primary care network project for our care leavers and the care leaver transition nurse. And what's interesting to note from the meetings that we hold with the primary care networks is the requests for support back are around emotional and mental health. There's some around physical health needs, but mostly around that. And the nice thing about that project is that it's a hand out to our care leavers. And that's where we use our population health management tool to scope where our care leavers are, which GP surgeries they're under, and then we work with those GP surgeries to identify what those the needs are. They then reach out to the care leavers. So it's another hand of support for them. And in terms of special educational needs, as is set out in their emotional health and health and care plans, that is needs led. So it will be ongoing up to 25 for our care leavers.
Thank you. Any more questions with reference to this report? Louise Drury.
Thank you. It's not actually a question as such, Just a comment, really. I'd just like to thank our health colleagues because of their continued determination to try and offer flexible appointments to our children. We have seen an increase in the number of our children in care. And of course, we know that our colleagues are also serving our BCP as well. And their absolute focus on the needs of our children. Sometimes we don't get it right in terms of getting consent and all of our paperwork as it should be to them for a range of different reasons. But even in those circumstances, I'm really grateful for the flexibility that our colleagues have shown us and ability to kind of go, actually, we can just move this a little bit around. So I welcome the relationship. I'm really pleased to have the regular monitoring meetings, which are sometimes not always comfortable for any of us. But I just wanted to make that comment, so thank you.
Yes, thank you. And I also would like to thank you as well for engaging with us so successfully. Thank you. So, Councillor Robinson, we'll come back to complaints and representations, children in care and care leavers.
Oh, thank you, Chairman. Thank you for that. I've got a question regarding the send complaints. Could you possibly tell me what the issues are, how this is being addressed, and how this will be addressed moving forward, please?
Thank you, Councillor Robinson and Paula Goldin. The whole report has been submitted for this corporate parenting board, but it will be going to scrutiny in January, where we can have focus on children, on the complaints that aren't related to children in care. Is it all right for us to respond to that in January?
Yes, I was just
Yes, okay.
particularly interested in our children in care in this board. Thank you. Is that okay, Councillor Robertson?
Yeah, January it is then, please.
Yes, thank you. So, thank you for everybody's input today. Item 14, the date of our next meeting, just to confirm details and deadlines for papers for the next meeting of the formal Corporate Parenting Board, which will be held on the 28th of May 2026. And our next informal meeting will be held on January the 29th, 2026. Item 15, are there any urgent items to be considered? No. And there's no exempt items scheduled for this meeting. So I'm happy to say thank you to everybody who's engaged with us today. I think it's been, the questions and answers have been excellent. And just to say, Councillor Sari House's questions, they will be included in the papers that come back out to you with the minutes, his questions and answers more fully, because there were quite a lot of them. So the officers are quite happy to add those into when we send out the minutes. Councillor Lugg.
Yeah, it's nothing to do with the meeting. I just wondered how quickly we'll get information about the groups that have been set up and hear about meetings. Are you going to put something out fairly quickly?
Kay, do you want to respond to that? Is Kay right?